what are some tips or tricks you would give somebody that's looking to make some plays, either buying or selling over the next 3 days? All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Cards and Content. We got a little bonus pod today. NFL draft season is upon us. And what better way to kick off the NFL draft than with a bonus pod with our friend GabeyCardStacks, our guy Gabe, our first ever returning guest to the pod. This man is the Mel Kiper of college football for sports cards. Guy knows more than Mel Kiper. I'm going to go on record and say that I think this is Mel Kiper 2.0 right here. Good guy. Again, he's been a guest on the pod before. So we're going to kick off the NFL draft with some card chatter, making some plays, what we're doing for the draft, how we think this is going to look. So my guy, Gabe, welcome back to the pod.
Yeah, awesome. No, thank you for having me. I was excited when you asked me about this. This is the best 3 days in sports for me, better than March Madness, the Masters, anything you could put on television. This is my favorite day or weekend. I will watch every single pick, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I would share the same sentiment that it's my favorite 3 days, but it is definitely up there. It is definitely high on my list for sports. So I want to get right into it. Let's just start with some of the basics. We're going to get into some of the plays. I want to talk around that. But what's the draft is on. It's Thursday night. It's your favorite day of the year. What's my guy doing to, set the vibe for us here? How are we looking on draft day? What are we doing? Are we ordering food? Are we ripping some boxes? We got ComC, eBay, and whatnot up on 3 different screens. Talk me through this process of this is the draft day. This is the big stage. What's that looking like in the GabeyCardStacks household?
Yeah, no, for sure. I wish the HQ was like the New York Stock Exchange floor and I just got tickers and prices and next up my big boards over here, prices, everything. But so I that's all I'm thinking about all day. I'm listening to all the podcasts, taking in all the info. I love this is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm not from like McShay and Kuiper and all those guys. But usually ordering in food for the Thursday night first round and then watching every single pick. Sometimes it gets a little long. You're sitting there for like 3-4 hours for 30 picks, which can drag on a little bit once you get to the end. But we're taking in every single pick. I'll have my laptop up and I'm going to be on ComC basically as soon as I'll be watching sales right now. Just been preparing and buying over a year in advance for a lot of these guys. And then also just seeing what's out there. If there's a surprise pick in there that I'm looking at or a good team fits, all those popular teams and all the top teams, make a skill player selection, then I'm definitely looking at that. And then day 2, we're getting right back to it. I always take that, since I've joined the corporate world and everything, I always take Friday off. I'm going to start listing some cards and that I missed or just going through some boxes. So doing all that sort of admin stuff and then just enjoying leading up to day 2. And then day 3 again, the whole house is going to be shut down and we'll just be locked in ComC, ready to make some flips instantly.
Awesome. So we talked a little bit before we started, but what I know about you is you are a grinder. You will make lots. You will, scour ComC. You'll scroll through ComC for hours, find deals. You'll make plays. You will, you'll make stuff happen. But when the draft is happening, right? Talk me through this process for you as someone who does this a lot, right? It's not full time for you, but you spend a lot of time on your craft with the podcast, the content, and the ComC, the flip, side of the business. So are you leading up to the draft? Are we pricing things on ComC now, or are we just collecting data to make plays on those cards when they happen, right? Because we're I'll just say mine. Right now, we are in the process of getting cards together for either eBay drafts, whatnot, auctions like we run. Obviously, we are live on Whatnot so much, so we're trying to get things ready for Whatnot. We'll have cards on our website. We'll have fresh singles in shop. So we are doing the prep work now to get things available for sale. So when these things happen and Travion Henderson is drafted, boom, college team, pro team can say, we'd like to buy one of these cards. We'll have them for sale. But are you the type of person that wants to wait and see where they go? Do you want to have them for sale before? Like, talk me through that process. Because like if I think about like how you operate, you might be you might be saying, okay, Friday we're gonna get up and we're gonna build some lots of some of these guys. We're gonna have those. Like, how is this working in your world? From like, I want to get an idea of like the flipper, the strategy behind selling the cards, and like how you walk through that over multiple days.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a mix. So like I've never really ran auctions at all for the draft, but this year I did start some 3-day auctions and some 5-day auctions just to prep so that some first, like I want to experiment with Shadur slabs, ending those Thursday night. I want to experiment on Sunday night auctions. So last night I was kind of prepping some auctions and sending stuff to 3-day auction, 5-day auction. So that was one piece of it. Most of my stuff I do have priced already, just preparing, and stuff is already moving today. A lot of lower end stuff of just guys with any sort of bit of news for hype. So always keep things priced, and then for kind of the lower end and the lots, so like mostly like inserts, like especially with Bowman U, like hey, here's 5 Ramblin' Man of one player, and I'm going to lot that up like Friday morning. Hopefully, if they go first round, or like Omarion Hampton is a good example,
Yep.
maybe goes first round top 20. Like I'm going to probably put all my lower end, hey, here's a 12 card Omarion Hampton lot, and list that up on eBay and see what that does. So that's kind of my approach. And then, draft day, I guess it's just kind of browsing, looking at kind of the hot names again, seeing if anything new has popped up, if people are pricing currently, and, seeing if on Check Out My Cards we can make a quick play on eBay, if there's something that was newly listed that catches my eye, that regardless of where this player gets drafted, I believe in them and kind of like that situation, or if it's just, I think there's going to be room from when you purchase it to the draft actual hype of them being selected, and then even post draft Sunday, Monday, when everyone has the winners and losers of the draft, biggest sleepers, like there's going to be a lot of push after that. And then you could even go all the way into mini camp when, all these clips start getting shared of guys and reports of, wide receiver one, Mahomes' new weapon, things like that. So it's definitely a marathon that I've learned. Before it used to be like, hey, I hope I'm out of everything by draft night and I priced it to sell and I'm done. But now I've learned like you could go all the way into the season, and, you not a lot of cards being produced, and, you're still in a good spot in pro uni. And, that's their only card for a lot of these guys.
So let's say I'm completely new to this. I'm listening and I'm excited for the draft. What are some tips or tricks you would give somebody, as somebody that's looking to make some plays, either buying or selling, over the next 3 days?
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned, my strategy has kind of evolved over the last 3 years since like Bowman U license came out in 2022. My first year was just whatever I get my hands on. Some guys I believe in, I'm buying a little bit heavier. 2023, I kind of learned that autos were a little bit more desirable and just faster to move as opposed to just like maybe a color. So lean towards that. And then 2024 set, or 2024 draft, I was more into gold autos. That one I was a little, because like gold, everyone likes the gold
Yep.
and the lower numbered stuff, and but that one I was a little thrown off. I didn't see as much track. Like Dallas Turner was the perfect example. I feel like where like all my low end base autos sold of his, but not a lot of my yellow, gold, my nicer high end stuff moved on draft night. I don't know if that's like if people don't want to make a huge, $40, $50 commitment on their guy night
Yep.
one, if they're buying one card of each of their draft picks as a collection and memento of that moment. So I have learned that like one, base cards, just straight up their Bowman first card or any sort of, I guess, other product. And then base autos have been really easy to move. And I get it, it's a low point of entry, super high transaction. If you were to look up, Ashton Genty Bowman, recently sold, a lot of it's going to be his base cards, just the super high transaction amount. So if you can get on check out my cards and buy up some of those base, and then you're not getting rich overnight, but like for me, I'm probably 60 base cards deep that I've been buying over the last couple weeks. And was buying them at 70 cents to $2, and now they're at $4. So, over time, even Jackson Dart, I remember a year ago, I was buying those Bowman first for 10 cents on Check Out My Cards. And I was just buying it for the college football playoffs. I'm like, hey, they got a pretty easy schedule. You're going to be throwing the ball a lot with Lane Kiffin. And now he's potentially a first round, top 15, top 20 pick. And now those cards are like $2-3. So it's more kind of a volume play for me, but super easy, super low barrier to enter, super high sales volume and transactions. So I like that. And then if you want to upgrade to a base on some guys, a Genti base is going to be close to $100. So maybe not the most feasible thing, but on someone like Donovan Ezeraku, you probably get that for $4 or $5,
He's
sell it for
cheap.
$8 in a matter of minutes. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've learned and where my angle is if you want to kind of get into the game and with a low cost of entry too.
I love it. Yeah. You're talking about, is it Boston College? The end?
Yep.
Yeah. I know his stuff is super cheap because, we were talking about it here because we've definitely seen the uptick in number of, transactions on college cards and like our eBay page, like whatnot, ComC, like we've seen a lot more of that kind of stuff move, whether that be Portal Talk, like, selling the Josh Hoover cards on, the potential he could go to Tennessee, ended up staying. So like there was some conversation there. But then you get into like, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I'm going to absolutely butcher it, so I won't even say it. But the Boston College D end, like we sold some numbered cards of him this week for a few bucks. And like you just start to see some of those transactions starting to take place. Now, before we get more, because I want to talk more about this, but I think this conversation will lead us there. We are not quite there yet, so I'm sure if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, we'll hear about it. But as we sit right now, we're recording this a few days before this podcast will actually drop, but how do you envision the first couple picks going? You mentioned it earlier, might have been offline, but like you think the first two picks are kind of a lock at this point. How do you see the first, maybe we'll say 5-10 picks shaping out here?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I would Cam Ward. I feel like the odds in the last like month, before it was always Abdul Carter. He was this generational prospect, and now he had a foot injury and he's kind of sliding down a little bit. So Cam Ward there at number 1, 2 Tennessee, 2 Travis Hunter. Seems like that's been kind of pretty much in the cards there. 3 is where the draft kind of starts. If they go quarterback or if they go Abdul Carter, kind of the safe pick. They've already got some strong defensive guys up in the box already, so it'll be interesting if they go there. It seems like the front office is like Team Shadur, and then like Dayball and staff is like Jackson Dart. So very interesting. I feel like you got to make a play if you're New York, and like just you got to take a quarterback here. Like, jobs are on the line right now.
100%.
In New York.
That's one thing I was going to say. I don't want to interrupt because I want to continue this conversation. But that is, like you said, that is the best quote about this. Pick number 3 is where the draft starts. It starts at 3. First 2 are a lock. The Travis Hunter thing, I think, has taken some time, but it has come full circle at this point where it is going to be Travis Hunter, it seems. So it looks like 3 is going to be that pick. And, I saw something the other day, I think it was McShay talking about it, where it's like the Giants haven't taken a first-round quarterback since Daniel Jones. He's not here. You bring in Jameis, you bring in Russ. Is that what leads you to the promised land and keeps those jobs? Like, if the Giants don't make the playoffs again, Dable and GM keeping their job. And again, I read the same report you did. I think it was actually McShay again talking about it, where it says Dable is super interested in Jackson Dart, loves Jackson Dart. Front office is more Shadur Sanders. But it seems like you've got to take somebody on your way out, because if you don't have the guy, like, you might as well try to get something done. If you like Russell Wilson, Jameis, like, doesn't seem like the play. So, and again, I've been, you and I've talked a little bit about this, but I'm a Patriots fan. So 4, had Joe Milton not balled out in 1, we'd be sitting at number 1, King's ransom, hopefully. Move back a couple picks. We have Drake May. I would have felt great. Well, now we move to 4. I want Abdul Carter to last. I want the Giants to take the QB or give the pick up, like trade the pick for some more picks, because I maybe it's the Raiders come knocking for Shedeur. Like that was always in the discussion. You know, he'd post it after every loss of the Raiders. Like I don't know if you did you see this? I think it was like every time the Raiders lost, Shedeur Sanders got on Twitter and like posted something like on Twitter, like I don't know if it was thanking God. I don't know what it was, but it was like every time the Raiders lost, Shedeur Sanders would post something on Twitter. And it was not like at the Raiders, but it was like clearly like Shedeur Sanders has some interest in becoming a Raider. So maybe the Raiders come up and get him, but I look at it as like I want it to be a QB at 3 because I want Abdul Carter at 4. I don't love the Will Campbell conversations, like too big for a guard, too small for a tackle, small reach, small hands. I'm not in love with that. So I've seen the Jackson Dart Shedeur thing. I really hope, for a multitude of reasons, because I think you would agree with this, and I'll get into this later. The more quarterbacks that go in the top of the class is better for, I think, cards in general. It creates more demand around the product, creates more demand around the class when there's more QBs in the first round. So I think both of us would sit here and say we're pro cards. The more quarterbacks that go in the first round, the more beneficial it is to, the more interest there is going to be in this class as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. Yeah. Definitely want a run of QBs, and it'll be interesting to see what New York does, because that, again, now determines what the Patriots do, and, it's just kind of a free fall from there. I don't know. I lean Abdul just to be safe and just like, do they take, a quarterback there? Jackson Dart at 3 would be insane. Like his cards would just go, I can't even fathom what his cards would do. Is just like, they're already pretty high, but then going like at a shocking number 3 would be insane for that.
To a market like New York.
Yes.
That's a big key piece in this. This is not Tennessee. This is New York. That's a much bigger market. Like the bigger markets in sports, I would tell you, would typically be in more demand. New York, LA, Chicago, Boston, some of those markets seem to do well when they get big time players like, a potential franchise quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. So I like that. I would go, seems like Membu or Will Campbell is kind of the move at 4, I guess, for the Patriots. Don't know what's going to happen there. 5 is interesting. I really like this James Gladstone kid. He's our age, Ryan, and he's the GM of the Jags. Like, it's pretty crazy. And everyone's like Mason Graham, defensive lineman, like he's kind of a D-line guru. But I've always thought like Tetro McMillan, they bring in Liam Cohn, who's an offensive guy, get Trevor Lawrence this huge target. Brian Thomas balled out in his rookie year. Like that's pretty exciting. That's a pretty big splash at number 5. So there's that one. And then I guess to round it out, I like Genty there at 6 to Raiders. But to your point, Shedeur has always kind of been, he's in that like Tom Brady camp, and like they're close, and Brady's a big advocate of like sitting quarterbacks for their rookie year and like letting them develop under the Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love hype, or I guess training to get into kind of that QB1 status after a year. So that'll be interesting to see. And then the Jets, it seems like maybe O-line, and then from there, I don't know what it'll look like, but I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first 7s where we are aligned on just like where I think it's going to be really interesting, just because it's like there's so many big time guys, and then you get down, again, Brian's got the list up here now with like a mock draft. You get to 8, you're talking about a guy like Jalen Walker. Then you get to 9, you've got, this mock has Shedeur. This is NFL Draft has, or NFL.com has Shedeur at 9, Tyler Warren at 10. I lean more towards the Mason Graham pick for Jacksonville. And then the Ashton Genty pick to the Raiders. I think I think that's the thing though, is like so many of those teams 3 through 7 are real wild cards. Like there's a lot of need on those teams. Obviously, they're in the top 7 picks. That makes a ton of sense. Patriots need to protect Drake May. They need defensive line help drastically. They got to have somebody to catch the ball. Like, I'm a Patriots guy. Like, let me tell you, man, that team is not a pick 4 away from being, a contender. I like May. I would love to build around him, but we need, a lot of help. So if Shadur Sanders or Jackson Dart doesn't go and we can trade back, if we don't have Abdul Carter, I would much rather trade back to 6-9. I would much rather move back. I think when you get past the Patriots pick, this is where I believe it will be Mason Graham, or I think it would be Genty. I think one of those two is going to be at 5. And then I think 6 for the Raiders is going to be Genty. I've heard they need corner help. You look at the Shadur pick, if there's a QB available, I think all the sense in the world. He wants to be there. The Brady argument, like there's a lot of, opportunity there. Like, hey, you're playing for the future. This doesn't happen overnight. You have the Raiders have talent. The Raiders, like, there's pieces in there. Obviously, it's a tough division. But yeah, so much fun. Like I'm so excited for this. I think going through this conversation, I think the one thing that disappoints me so much, especially wearing this Ohio State jacket, is, we start playing this mock draft out for the first round. Just let me down easy here. But are we going to have more Michigan Wolverines and Penn State Nittany Lion alumni drafted in the first round this year than, my Ohio State Buckeyes?
Yeah, probably. But what's crazy is like Ohio State is gonna have like 15 kids go in the top like 160. Like that's a lot of talent that they've got. So hopefully you can get like more Pro Bowlers out of this group and go about the quality and quantity as opposed to just 3 in the first.
Well, thank you for making that somewhat optimistic.
Yeah, it's a long game.
Okay, so we sit here right now. You've given us a couple ideas on like where these picks should go. Before the draft happens, who do you look at in this draft class and say, hey, I'm making plays on this guy, whether you think they're going to go higher than you might expect, you like where you think you're seeing them on like mock drafts, you just think no matter what, Vontae Mack, no matter what, like, hey, this is who we're drafting. Like, this person's the real deal. Walk me through some of the idea on, like, who we might be looking at right now pre-draft.
Yeah. So my Vontae Mack, no matter what guy, I would say an Arizona State guy, but Cam Scatterboo. And there's just
You've been on this for a while.
Yeah, no, like if Bowman University came out like in that September range, like man, I would be retired and just living good, man. Like I love Cam Scatterboo. Like he just carries that team. I don't know. You can't just watch that college football playoff team or game versus Texas and tell me like he did not carry that. Like what is it that you don't like about him? Like he's just I don't know. There's everything about him. But what I like about him, there's two things in terms of like card market. One, his base cards again. I think it's a pretty low point of entry. Not super high. They're still like at $1 or $2. Again, you're not getting rich off of it, but I think those are like $4 or $5 cards. Draft and hopefully he gets some hype over the summer. But two, he's not in Bowman University best. So that's his only run of cards is just Bowman U Chrome. So, his cards I feel like have a little bit more scarcity and just more value to them. Like that's his only color. That's his only auto. He wasn't in both sets. So I like it from that standpoint where like you're only finding him in Chrome. And then just an absolute dog. I feel like the draft is a little situational dependent. Like you look at Braylon Allen last year and it's like, man, he was looking good, all throughout pre-draft process. And then he sits behind Breece Hall. They had Israel Abanikanda. They draft Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State in like the 6th or 7th round as well. And it's like, man, like you got 4 decent running backs in that room now. So something like that could hurt him. But I'm like, I just don't see how this guy, with just how he runs, his contact balance, everything about him is just incredible. And I love it. So Vontae Mack, no matter what, it's Cam Scatterboo for sure. I don't know where he'll go. Like, hopefully, I don't know, day 2 at least, I feel. Running back's just such a wild position because it's like after your top 2, you could rank them 3 through 10 through 12 in a pretty decent, like there's Caleb Johnson, there's Quinshon Judkins, Travion. Like people say Quinshon's going to go higher than you think. I love Quinshon Judkins. I love him at Ole Miss. And then there's Scatterboo. So there's a lot of different guys that, you could mix and match there. And so that'll be interesting to watch as well. If, that running back 3 and 4, if they creep into like round 2 or even late first, if it's a Quinshon or Travion, that'll be interesting to watch as well.
Yeah, I've seen a few Travion's late first, and I love that to put him on a winning team. I think Travion's going to be one of the best running backs in this class. I think he's the real deal. I know his pass protection has gotten a lot better. In his last season at Ohio State, obviously helped on 3rd and 11 to Jeremiah to seal a national title. So big Travion guy, been that way since he was a freshman. But on the other end of the, Vontae Mack, no matter what, who's a guy that you're like, I just don't see it. There's some buzz there. There's some talk. I'm going to avoid this person as we sit this close to the draft.
Yeah, so I am a known anti Luther Burden guy. I just the whole first round or number one receiver last year in the draft, I was just like, I don't know. I didn't see it. Like, I feel like his skill set, like you can find that in a lot. He's great after the catch, ball in his hands, and I'm like, I could find that in Xavier Restrepo. Like he's another Vontae Mack no matter what. Xavier Restrepo. I just feel like he's going to be insane in the league, and everyone's going to wish that they picked him. But I would say right now, Luther Burden, I've got a top 100 here. He's definitely my guy where I'm like, I just don't see it. I've never really been a huge fan. If we want to go running back, um, hmm, I don't know. I like a lot of running backs. I guess Jordan James would be there. I'm just like, he's not like. I see DJ Giddens above him. Love DJ Giddens. See Devin Neal there. I love Devin Neal. There's a lot of good running backs. Jordan James in Bowman University, not one of my favorites. He's just kind of there. I was a huge Bucky Irving guy last year, though, and I didn't expect him to do that in the NFL. But
Yeah,
Bucky Irving last year
dog.
was the truth at Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago.
Yeah, he was a dog last year. All right, so we talk about a couple plays. We talk about guys maybe, hey, like them, avoid them. The draft happens. Draft is over. We're sitting here Sunday. We're kind of looking at all the picks, seeing what happened in the world that was the NFL draft in those 3 days. Talk me through maybe some of the process after the draft, what you look for, because now we're in a different time. Now it's like, okay, we got to prepare for camp. We got to prepare for, preseason games, the national. Walk me through your thought process post draft.
Yeah, so basically, I will look at kind of all the draft picks and how they kind of lined up if they took multiple players at one position or whatever. But I guess there's kind of two things. One, you'll look at like positional needs. Like Dallas at 12, it seems like they're taking a receiver. Like if it's Matthew Golden, he's another guy who's going to go bananas. Where it's like, hey, he's a local Texas kid, Houston, then transferred to Texas, balled out. So like looking at positional need, if they need a running or they do need a running back, so like if they get a running back, like I'm probably going a little bit more heavier on them if the market hasn't like completely ballooned at that point after the post draft hype, especially with that market. But I'll be looking at like Kansas City. Like we've seen Justin Ross was like first team all mini camp like for 2 years in a row. And it's like Patrick Mahomes, wide receiver one, like is finally here. And he had all this hype. And I remember he was first year Bowman U, like the unlicensed set, and his cards were doing numbers. Wasn't in a lot of pro sets in his second year either. So things like that. Carson Steele last year, I remember texting you about him, and I was like, dude, like Carson Steele base cards are doing like $10. His sapphires $20. His purples are doing 40. So like looking at like those kind of championship caliber teams, like a wide receiver going to Kansas City seems like a fantastic thing for that market. Philly coming off of their season. Like even Miami, like Mike McDaniel's kind of a sicko where like if they're like at pick 70 and there's a wide receiver on the board that he loves, like I wouldn't put it past them to be like, yeah, we got Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and Xavier Restrepo's there. Like might as well go all in. Like they go for that home run there. So like looking at that also like at Tua, I don't like profiting off injury and all of that, but like his health is inevitably like a concern. It's like a QB2 there, could be in a situation where they're playing for a quarter or even. That's all you need sometimes in the card market. So something like that. LA, if they take a quarterback after Stafford. So just kind of looking at like the positional value of where they are in depth charts and what teams like Minnesota, they're rocking and rolling right now. So they get a nice skilled player there. You're in a really good spot, so really looking at those bigger markets, the playoff teams, the guys who can contribute early, looking at those. And then just kind of, even if you want to throw some darts at, quarterback with some of these later guys like a Will Howard or a Riley Leonard and, maybe they ball out in preseason going into, the August territory, and, look at what Joe Milton cards did, that preseason game. So lot of plays to be made for sure. And you can go backup quarterback, you go running back in a loaded, like a running back drafted to Detroit might not be terrible. You're going to hold it till preseason, but I don't think those two guys are going to play a lot of preseason snaps. They're going to get some guys there, and they're going to get a lot of runs. So just kind of looking at those types of aspects, and how I can capitalize from a price and value and kind of market perspective.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think there's this, there's a couple of different ideas there where one, the idea around attention, I think that's the biggest thing is Mahomes gets a new weapon. There's interest in that person. Like, is it a first rounder? Is it a third rounder? Like, who is it, right? Is it a tight end? There's some big time tight ends on this list, right? I mean, obviously you expect Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland. Do you go higher? You've got is it Mason Taylor from LSU? There's multiple other tight ends. Like, is it the Travis Kelce replacement? He can't play forever. He's 12 years in the league now at this point. Like, when is that run going to end, right? Is this the Kelce replacement with Mahomes in his prime, right? These storylines kind of create themselves. So, yeah, for sure, Dallas has a star running back or a star wide receiver with Dak and CD. Like, again, like, they just kind of write themselves. I do think, though, again, I am a believer that quote unquote the draft ending like happens immediately after those picks are made, because if Matthew Golden ends up in Dallas, the time to buy Matthew Golden won't be 3 days later. The time to buy Matthew Golden will be the second that pick is in, because I would, again, and I would imagine you would agree that when Matthew Golden, if he is picked to Dallas at 12 or whatever pick it is, it doesn't take the market 60 minutes to react. It happens in 60 seconds, and then there's sales and there's sales and there's sales. And I think that's one of the things that is so intriguing about COMC for events like this is the ability to trade real time without touching the card. This is the only thing in the market that's like this, where you can, that I know of, where you can buy a player, sell a player, and not ever touch the card so quickly. I mean, this is like day trading real time. I think this leads to a lot of opportunity to buy and sell and flip real time. Like, you can do this during the Super Bowl. You can do this during March Madness. The draft is obviously multiple days. But again, if Travion Henderson goes to Green Bay late, or like you said, one of those teams, like maybe it's a Minnesota, Aaron Jones is getting old, maybe you send him to Green Bay, right? There might be some opportunity there. You send him to any of like these teams later in the draft. Travion stuff does pretty well here in Columbus. He's a likable guy, and now you're going to put him in a first round team that's a winning team. He's going to have an opportunity to play, you would imagine. I mean, these things aren't going to take that kind of time to react. So I think it will. I like and not to, go at you on it. It's just more of like the idea that I think on some of the bigger moments, the ones that will have storylines, like Mahomes' new target, big time local wide receiver in Dallas, new star running back in Green Bay. Those things I think happen much quicker. I think the longer term play is, in the other side of your conversation is definitely around like, what do I think happens up to preseason, up and through preseason. And I think that's where you see things that are going to be like, the quarterback is obviously a big one, because I don't anticipate Will Howard being a first round quarterback, right? So Will Howard, when you start going a little bit later, well, the teams that pick in the top, that one quarterback's likely take them. So you might get an opportunity where like Will Howard falls to like Chip Kelly and the Raiders in like the third, he gets reunited with Chip in Vegas. There could be some potential there, but some of those guys are going to go to the teams you talked about, like Stafford in LA, like Stafford or the Rams take a quarterback. And I think that might lead to a little bit more opportunity that may not be as like transacted on immediately as new wide receiver one in Kansas City, or, a Matthew Golden in Dallas. So I definitely like some of those plays to happen. Maybe that's the way I look at it, is maybe the first 2 rounds are a little bit more like they happen immediately, and maybe like 3, the third round and on, those ones just, I think, give you a little bit more time, but I think lead to a lot more like, okay, is this guy going to play? Is this guy going to get some runs in Detroit when Gibbs and David Montgomery aren't playing in the preseason? Cool, I like that, right? And I think, it leads to some opportunity. And then I think it leads to some opportunity in real time immediately, especially if there's guys like a Carson Steele, right? Because Carson Steele was not somebody we were actively talking about and buying and transacting on. Like, this isn't Ashton Genty. This is a guy that comes from a smaller school that is not running back 1, 2, 3, 5, or 8 on most boards. I don't believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But he's mostly in value boxes. There's going to be those opportunities immediately after, right? We're not far from May here. You're going to have Dallas is the first week after the after the NFL draft, right? So NFL draft happens this week. Dallas card shows next week. Can't think of a better opportunity to buy some of the guys we're looking for in value boxes than one of the biggest card shows in the entire world immediately after the NFL draft.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I think the value boxes are definitely the play as well, where it's like people just haven't gone through those boxes. They priced them a while ago. Like, who was buying, San Francisco maybe linked to like Jaden Higgins, and with that offense and everything, it's like you look at that and who was pricing Jaden Higgins the way that he would if he goes to San Francisco, goes with Brock Purdy, that offense. So definitely just having the awareness of what goes on in the draft and who is getting selected will really help you win in the bargain boxes for sure.
But I also think, to play the flip side of this is also the opportunity where you can absolutely crush somebody's card market, right? Because I think if you look at this, you and I would sit here would say if Jackson Dart ends up at 9 to New Orleans, I can't imagine Spencer Rattler's market's through the roof.
Yes, painfully. I'm a big Spencer Rattler guy, but yes, that would hurt significantly.
Right, but I think if you think about that, like if who was the wide receiver you just mentioned to Higgins?
Jaden Higgins.
Is that the Iowa State kid?
Iowa State, yeah.
Yep. So if he goes to San Fran, right? There's this talk that Ayuk gets traded around the draft. Whether he stays or goes, is TBD. But does that hurt Ricky Pearsall's market at all? I think there's some potential in there that obviously the Rattler and the Jackson Dart is probably the more extreme of that conversation, but it definitely leads to an opportunity where it could crush somebody's market on draft day or draft weekend. Should they say, hey, we're gonna take this guy. This is our bet on the future.
Yeah, no, for sure, and yeah, some replacements, and especially with cap hits and such, like Alvin Kamara, I think has a very hefty tag where it's if they go running back, in the top 50 or so, and it's maybe Kamara gets cut, June 30 or whatever. So a lot of different pieces for sure to move about.
Yeah, no question there. That leads me to, just more of a quick point. Anything you see happening, any guesses on maybe some players that might get traded on draft day? Because that also creates a different kind of buzz than maybe a guy that doesn't have a lot of cards going to a new home. You got a guy that, George Pickens has been thrown around as a guy that could get traded. I've heard Ayuk's name before. You obviously hear these crazy ones. I heard the Giants could trade Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau. I heard, again, this is where the internet is what it is, but you hear the Brock Purdy could be traded to the Titans and sign a $50 million a year deal. Obviously a lot of these things are, don't ever come to fruition, but anything you see happening or, think could happen on the draft day?
So actually I saw there was a tweet and it was this is the closest we've ever been to the draft without a trade in the first round so far. It was as of Sunday. Typically there's always been a trade for a first round prior to this week. This is one of the first drafts ever where it is the first draft ever. We've gone into Monday, no trades in the first round. I don't know, particularly, I see Jameson Williams is another big name that's been getting traded. He unfollowed the Lions and all that stuff always comes up. George Pickens would be an interesting one because I feel like he's always on that, trade him or whatever train. I'm unsure, but I want complete pandemonium, and I just want a whole bunch of movement. I want some interesting spots, I guess, to watch in the draft. It is pick 15, which is, let me pull that up.
Is that
That is
Bengals?
Atlanta.
Okay.
Atlanta has pick 15. They only have 5 picks in the draft, and two of them are seventh rounders. So I think they have 1, 3, and 4. So that's kind of like a hot spot for a trade right now, just to get them capital. The Vikings have only 4 picks in the draft. I think they go like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe, but they're another spot. And then Pittsburgh, I think, as well, at 21. They've been linked heavily to a quarterback. Sports books have Shadur as him going to Pittsburgh as like the best odds, but they don't have a second, and it's kind of like that's interesting territory to get like a Tyler Shuck or a Shadur if he falls or whatever the case may be. So those are like the 2, 3 landing spots of like potential trades that like people are kind of, you know, I don't know, circling the waters on, seeing if they can take advantage of a lack of draft capital from those teams. So those could be some player trades in the mix for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching the 2017 draft, with Mahomes and, Watson, and then you see Trubisky go. I think he went third that year. Miles was one. I forget who was two that year, but I think it went like Miles, someone else, and then Trubisky. But I remember watching that. Like you see, Brian's pulling it up here. I'm trying to think who.
Was that Fournette? He didn't go two.
No, I don't think he went two. I think he went like seventh.
He might have gone.
Did
Yeah.
Trubisky go two? No, Solomon Thomas. Solomon
Oh,
Thomas. Fournette went three. Fournette went three. Shout out Corey Davis, Western Michigan at four to the Titans. Hopefully.
there we go.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, he went five. Yeah, so Trubisky was two. I was wrong. Trubisky was two. Solomon Thomas was three. Fournette was four. Corey Davis was five. Jamal Adams, Mike Williams, CMC, McCaffrey went eight. John Ross nine. Mahomes went 10. But you see some of these draft day trades happen, and I am with you. I'm a big believer that like those are create far more excitement when you've got these deals happening. Let's get the vets involved. Let's trade Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Let's trade T.J. Watt. Let's trade Jamison Williams. Let's. I want to see absolute, like you said, absolute pandemonium. I'm all for that. But we could talk about this all day. I'm so excited for it. Hopefully we can chat again soon and just actually react to what did happen. But I'm curious your thoughts on this. We sit back here a year from now, we talk about the next class, right? When you look at this class, I have one more question after this. But when we look at this class a year from now, from a card perspective, how are we feeling about this class overall?
So I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe not. Yeah, I guess from a card perspective, unfortunately, like this class is heavy on defense. Like a lot of edge guys. Like you look at Michael and Shamar Stewart and
Mike Green?
Pierce
Mike
Jr.,
Green?
all those guys. So might be a little bit tougher in that space just because it is very defensive heavy. But I'm hoping like Jackson Dart, I think just depending on where he go, like Tennessee's tough. Tennessee's a tough, like, unless it's like a Jaden Daniels or like a CJ Stroud type rise where it's like I hope Cam Ward balls out, and I don't know. I mean, they're number one for a reason, like we've talked about. Like, can he just elevate that team to another level? I don't know. It's just gonna be interesting. It's such a wild card, and obviously dependent on a lot of the quarterbacks. I think this is a deep running back class. There's probably going to be 30 running backs drafted like all the way through the end of the draft, and even undrafted free agents are going to get some run. I feel like it'll be an interesting spot as well, just with like Tops Panini and as we kind of battle for exclusives and everything that goes on. So I just hope everyone has fun and everyone succeeds in the card market, because it's just, this is truly like just a lot. Like we don't know where Shadur or Jackson Dart's going to go or what they can really do, and those are like the big wild cards. So I don't know. It's gonna be a fun one, Ryan.
Yeah, I I would sit here and tell you, thank goodness Cooper Flag declared for the NBA draft, because if not, I would feel very differently about the next 12 months in the card market from like a singles perspective, with the uncertainties just around like exclusivity in the autograph deals, like Panini and Tops or Panini and Fanatics battling in court and some of those pending lawsuits. There's just a lot of like uncertainty right now in the card market, and I think that's how I feel about this class in general. Is just we could sit here right now and we could say Cam, Cam Ward's, we think Cam Ward is going 1, but Shedeur could go 2, he could go 15, he could go 21. Like, there's a lot of different places he could go. Jackson Dart's the same way. Jackson Dart could go 3, he could go 9, he could go, 26th. Like, there's a lot of opportunity there. I do like the idea that this class has a lot of running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, things outside of the QBs. You've got, I think the name is escaping me. I think he's a Bowling Green kid. I think he led the country in catches for like a tight end, and like he had some crazy numbers last year. What's his name?
Yeah, Harold Fannin.
Yeah, there we go. Harold Fannin, right? Like, you've got him, Mason Taylor, Loveland, Warren. I mean, that's 4 big time tight ends. That's not normal. The wide receivers especially is super deep. Like, you get into Golden, Ted McMillan. Does Ted McMillan want to play football? That's your guy. Like, we don't even know if he wants to play football. Like, Luther Burden, Emeka. Like, you start going down the list. The wide receivers are definitely deep. Travion Henderson, Judkins, Scattaboo, Genty, Hampton, like Dylan. Did Dylan Sampson end up going back, or he's in the class, isn't he?
Yeah, he's here. Yep,
So like you've got Sampson,
like a top 10 running back.
Right? Did Ollie Gordon go?
Yep, he's in there. Another guy.
So like, you've got a decent amount of running backs. Like, again, there's definitely going to be some big time defensive players for sure. But I think this is one of those class that's going to have a lot of skill position guys, where it's going to be deep, and you're going to see some of those day 2, day 3 type guy, or I'm sorry, round 2, round 3, round 4 guys make some noise because there's a lot of depth at those positions. So I'm excited there. I think it provides a little bit of flexibility off this idea that, like, the quarterbacks run the card market now. And if Cam Ward is not balling out and winning a bunch of games, somebody's got to carry the class, right? Because that's what we're going to ultimately run into is the autographs and, where that lands. Because Panini signed Shedeur and Travis Hunter. When is their license up with cards? Are they producing those guys with no logos? Is it just college? Like, there's a lot of things that still have to play out here. So I'm hoping we have a strong class here to get us through some of these uncertain times. That's expected over the next 12 months in cards. Because if my understanding is correct, over the next 12 months, from what we have been told and what we've seen in reports, is that Panini should be losing the NFL and NBA license over that time. NBA first later this year, NFL early in 2026. Is that happening? Are we going to get unlicensed Travis Hunter and Shedeur autos and not tops? Are they exclusive? Like, there's just a lot of things that I think I'm uncertain about. So hopefully some of the names at the top can carry some weight and be, Pro Bowlers year 1, and then you see some of that depth kind of play out over time. Like, we got it last year. Brian Thomas, Ladd, Bucky Irving, Keon Coleman. Like, you saw some moments from some of those guys later. Carson Steele earlier in the season. Like, there's plenty of guys from last year, but obviously to have 6 quarterbacks in that class that people have demand for, that carries a lot of weight in a class. So I'm eager to see what, uncertainty and exclusivity brings to this class over the next, 12 months.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you hope that like one of those late round quarterbacks pop off too. Like everyone's always chasing like the Brock Purdy, and it's like, is it a Seth Hennigan guy or a Quinn Ewers who we haven't even talked about, where it's like, maybe that's like the answer in Las Vegas for one of those guys. So, you just never know. So hopefully you get one of those guys to pop off too and have that storyline.
So one last thing as we wrap up here, you've got, $100 come Sunday. Knowing what I know about you, I'm going to ask this, but I think I already know the answer. You putting that $100 in this class right now, the class that's about to be drafted, or are you putting that $100 in the 2026 class?
Yeah, of course. Without a doubt.
26?
What was that?
I said, are you putting it in 2026 or 2025?
Oh, 2026. We're already on 2026. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well,
we're ready.
Yeah, I think that's another conversation for another day, just around this idea that like what Cam Ward stuff sells for and the potential for some of those guys leading up to 2026, because you're going to have big time QBs at the top. Like there's a couple that are for sure going to be in the conversation just because they've got to go. And then you're going to have some QBs that have to make decisions. So a fun conversation, but I think, if we've learned anything from this draft process, it means there's definitely some opportunities leading into, the 2026 or 2025 or college football season, and then the 2026 draft a year from now.
Yeah, no, yeah, we're staying early. We're looking at 2026 drafts. I mean, as soon as the draft ends, I'm looking for way too early 2026 mock drafts, and I hope those come out Monday.
I love it. All right. Well, man, I appreciate you taking some time away from the research, the spreadsheets, the sales, the big board. So many things you're getting prepped for this. I'll be eager to check the timeline on Twitter, see what you've got going on this weekend. I'm excited to chat some picks and hopefully talk more about this draft after it happens. But enjoy the few days. Thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me anytime.
Shout out to everybody who stopped by for this bonus pod here. Wanted to get our guy GabeyCardStacks on, talk all things NFL draft, cards, making plays for the NFL draft season. Make sure you guys check him out, GabeyCardStacks, on Twitter and on YouTube. He also has a podcast, and if you guys are into the college card space like I am, definitely check it out. It's Cards on Campus on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you guys check out Gabe. He's the man. But for now, that is all I got. Peace, guys.